My sister didn't ask for my workshop. She just walked in and started mapping out where her industrial ovens would go. It happened 2 weeks ago. I was in the middle of routing a $6,000 walnut dining table when the heavy metal side door swung open. My sister Chloe, 27, marched in, followed by her fiancé Marcus, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Chloe didn't look at my work. She didn't ask how I was. She just walked past my lumber racks, squinted at the high concrete ceilings, and pointed a manicured finger toward my dust collection system. "We'll have to tear those pipes down," she announced over the hum of the machinery. "The cake tasting tables will go by the north windows. The light there is perfect." I shut off the router. The sudden silence in the warehouse was deafening. "Chloe? What are you talking about?" "My cake wedding boutique," she said, setting her designer purse directly onto my freshly sanded wood. "Marcus and I have been looking at commercial rents downtown, and they're ridiculous. Then I remembered your place. This ground floor is massive, the natural light is beautiful, and it already has the industrial chic vibe I want." I stared at her, waiting for a punchline that never came. "I bought this dilapidated brick warehouse 3 years ago. I spent every weekend and every spare dollar gutting it, sealing the roof, and turning the downstairs into a fully functional, high-end furniture studio. The loft upstairs is where I sleep, but this floor is my livelihood. It holds $40,000 in precision machinery." "You're joking," I said. "I'm entirely serious," she said, using the slow, patient voice our parents always used to excuse her worst ideas. "You can move your saws and wood piles down to the basement. It's a bit damp, but you're just cutting timber. A luxury bakery needs a proper storefront. It makes 0 sense for you to hoard this entire floor just for yourself." "I'm not moving my business into a damp basement because you want a free storefront, Chloe. The answer is no." Her expression shifted instantly from professional to furious. "You're incredibly selfish, Liam. Marcus and I are trying to build a future. Family is supposed to help family, but you'd rather keep your precious sawdust than see your own sister succeed." She turned on her heel and slammed the heavy steel door behind her. Marcus gave me a panicked, apologetic look before running after her. I thought that was the end of it. I underestimated how much our parents had ruined her sense of reality. The phone call started at 7 a.m. the next morning. My mother didn't even say hello. "Liam, I am deeply disappointed in your attitude. Your sister was in tears all night." "Good morning to you too, Mom," I said, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "She wants me to move $40,000 worth of precision machinery into a damp basement so she can have a free kitchen. Did she mention that part?" "She wants to share the space, Liam. There is a difference," my mother snapped. "You have always been so protective of your little things. You've lived alone in that warehouse for too long. It's making you cold. Chloe is getting married. She's trying to start a legitimate business, and you have all this room you aren't even using." "I am using it. It's my shop. It's how I pay my mortgage." "Family helps family," she said, using the exact phrase she always deployed right before forcing me to give up something to Chloe when we were kids. "Just think about it. For me." An hour later, my dad texted, "Your mother is upset. Call your sister and find a compromise." Then came the digital siege. Chloe didn't call me directly, but she began texting me links, articles about commercial real estate inflation in the city, blogs about young entrepreneurs failing because of high overhead costs, and stories about siblings who went into business together and became millionaires. Every link was accompanied by a passive-aggressive caption like, "Must be nice to have more space than you know what to do with." By Wednesday, she took it to social media. She posted a photo of her baking cupcakes in our parents' kitchen with a caption that read, "Working hard in a cramped space, dreaming of the day I can finally open my boutique. It's tough when the people who are supposed to support you the most prefer empty square footage over your happiness. But Marcus and I will keep pushing. Hashtag women in business, hashtag family disappointment." The comments section filled up instantly with sympathy from extended family. My Aunt Susan commented, "Selfishness ruins families. Stay strong, sweetie." My uncle called me that evening to ask if everything was okay with my mental health because refusing to help your own sister start a family business sounds erratic. What none of them seemed to understand or care about was that my basement was a low-ceilinged, unventilated concrete box prone to flooding during heavy rains. Moving my heavy machinery down there would destroy the calibration, ruin the wood inventory with moisture, and legally violate the city's zoning laws for safety. But in the universe my family occupied, my livelihood was just a hobby, and Chloe's whims were a communal emergency. I ignored the messages and kept my head down, working on a custom oak cabinet. I thought if I just stayed quiet, the drama would burn itself out. I was wrong. Chloe was just getting warmed up. On Friday afternoon, Chloe and Marcus showed up at the workshop again. I hadn't answered any family calls for 2 days, and I think she realized the guilt trip wasn't working. This time, she wasn't screaming. She was smiling. It was her corporate smile, the one she used when she wanted to look professional. Marcus followed her, holding a sleek black folder like a shield. "We came to apologize," Chloe said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I shouldn't have lost my temper last week. I know you love your woodshop, Liam. So Marcus and I spent the week putting together a formal partnership proposal. We want to do this right." She gestured to Marcus, who opened the folder and handed me a printed document titled Project Sweetwood, a Shared Space Initiative. I glanced down at the paper. It was a joke. Proposed rent, $0 per month for the first 2 years to allow the bakery to establish cash flow. Utility split, 20% from the bakery, 80% from me because saws use more electricity than ovens. Compensation, I would receive complimentary dessert catering for any major event I hosted, plus free advertisement on the bakery's Instagram page. "See," Chloe said, leaning against my workbench, "it's a win-win. You get to keep your loft upstairs, and we turn the downstairs into a high-end destination. Your rustic tables actually fit my branding perfectly." "Chloe, this isn't a partnership. This is an eviction notice with a bow on it," I said, putting the paper back in the folder. "You aren't paying rent, you aren't paying your share of utilities, and you expect me to work around a kitchen." "You aren't looking at the intangibles," she insisted, her voice tightening. "The foot traffic I bring in will see your furniture. It's free marketing." Before I could answer, she pulled a professional laser measure from her pocket. "Let's just see how the display cases will look. Marcus, hold the end of this against the lumber rack." "Chloe, stop," I said. She ignored me, stepping right past my active assembly table. She reached out and swept a pile of my hand-drawn blueprint sketches onto the floor to make room for a box of cake display samples she had brought. The bottom of the box was sticky with pink buttercream, leaving a greasy smear right across a piece of premium, unfinished white oak I'd spent 3 hours prepping. That was the line. "Get out," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it stopped her cold. "Liam, we're just measuring. Get your boxes, get your laser, and get out of my building. Now." Marcus immediately grabbed the folder. "Chloe, let's go. We should go." Chloe glared at me. Her eyes darted to the ruined wood, then back to my face. "You are an absolute monster, Liam. I am trying to build a career, and you treat me like a criminal. I'm telling Mom." "Tell whoever you want," I said, escorting them to the heavy metal door. "If you come back here without an invite, I'm locking the gates." By Saturday morning, the narrative had completely changed. I wasn't just a brother who said no. I was a violent aggressor. My aunt called me at noon, her voice trembling with manufactured panic. "Liam, how could you put your hands on your own sister? She's traumatized." "I didn't touch her," I said, cold fury settling in my chest. "I told her to leave my property because she was ruining my inventory." "That is not what Chloe said. She said you grabbed her by the arm and threw Marcus's things into the street. Your mother is physically sick over this." I hung up. 10 minutes later, a friend texted me a screenshot of Chloe's Instagram. She had posted a close-up photo of her wrist with a faint, barely visible red mark, probably from rubbing it herself, with the caption, "When a man uses physical intimidation to crush your business dreams because he's bigger than you, bruises heal, but the betrayal doesn't. Family means nothing to some people." The post already had over 200 likes. Her friends were in the comments calling me a thug, a deadbeat, and demanding to know where my shop was so they could boycott my business. 2 local wedding planners I had worked with previously on custom venue tables uninvited me from an upcoming design showcase. Chloe wasn't just trying to guilt me anymore. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation to force my hand. Then came the final straw. My mother added me to a Facebook group chat named Mitchell Bakery Transition Team. Chloe had uploaded a detailed PDF schedule. Week 1, Liam clears out the heavy machinery and stores it in the basement.
Week 2, industrial gas line installation for the ovens. Week 3, painters arrive for the storefront branding. They were organizing a remodel of my own property in a chat room I didn't ask to be in. I texted the group, "Nobody is touching this building. Chloe is lying about what happened. If anyone shows up here, I will not open the door." Then I left the chat. 5 minutes later, my dad called. "Liam, you need to stop this ego trip. Chloe has already printed marketing materials with your address on them. She's distributed them to bridal expos. You're going to make her look like a liar to her clients." "She is a liar, Dad. She gave out my address without my permission." "She's your sister. She assumed you'd back her up. Now call your mother and fix this before it goes too far." I didn't call my mother. Instead, I drove to the local hardware store. I spent $600 on a commercial-grade smart lock system that required biometrics and a secure digital passcode. I spent the rest of the evening drilling the new deadbolts into the heavy steel doors and setting up 2 new motion-activated security cameras facing the main entrance and the alleyway. I sat in the dark workshop afterward, watching the green status lights of the cameras blink on. It felt paranoid, but looking at the grease stain Chloe had left on my premium oak wood, I knew I wasn't dealing with a normal sibling dispute anymore. I was dealing with an obsession.
The ambush came disguised as a truce. 10 days after I changed the locks, my father texted me. His tone was exhausted, stripped of the usual anger. "Your mother is a wreck, Liam. She's barely eating. Just come over for Sunday dinner. No shouting, no talk about the workshop, just family." I wanted to believe him. I missed my parents, and the isolation of living in the warehouse with a fractured family was starting to weigh on me. So, against my better judgment, I drove to my childhood home that Sunday. The moment I stepped into the dining room, the air turned to ice. The dining table wasn't set for food. The plates were pushed to the sideboard. Instead, my parents sat at the head of the table with printed folders in front of them. Across from them sat Chloe and Marcus. Chloe's laptop was open, hooked up to a small portable projector she had aimed at the dining room wall. "Sit down, Liam," my father said, using his old corporate voice. "We need to handle this like adults." "I said no talk about the shop, Dad," I said, keeping my hand on the back of the chair. "We lied," Chloe said flatly, clicking her mouse, "because you won't listen to reason otherwise." A slide flashed on the wall. Boutique bakery integration and resource allocation. I stood there in absolute disbelief as my sister launched into a formal, structured presentation about stealing my property. Slide 1, the space inefficiency. She showed a floor plan of my workshop highlighting the underutilized square footage of my lumber storage. Slide 2, compliance and aesthetics. A mock-up of my building with her pink logo draped over my brick facade. Slide 3, financial compromise. She offered to pay $300 a month starting in year 3, calculating that I would save money on groceries because she would leave leftovers in the fridge. My parents nodded along like they were board members approving a merger. "Look at the data, Liam," my mother said, pointing at a slide showing commercial rent prices downtown. "It's illogical for you to stay there alone when Chloe is drowning in market costs. This is the only way." "The answer is still no," I said. "I don't care about your slides, Chloe. I don't care about your data. You cannot have my building." Chloe clicked to the final slide. It was a timeline chart. The current date was marked as Phase 1, operational handover. "You don't understand," Chloe said, her voice dropping the professional act, turning sharp and desperate. "We already signed the contract for the commercial kitchen equipment. The deposit is non-refundable, and I quit my job at the franchise yesterday." The room went dead silent. Even my father looked blindsided. "What did you do?" he asked, looking at her. "I had to," Chloe cried, turning her wet eyes toward our parents. "The equipment suppliers had a flash sale, and I knew Liam would see the logic once he saw the presentation. I told the suppliers the delivery truck would arrive at the warehouse on the 15th. She looked back at me, her face twisting into a mask of pure entitlement. "The delivery is in 5 days, Liam. If you don't let them in, I lose my deposit, I lose my equipment, and I'm unemployed. My entire future is in your hands." I didn't yell. I just stood up from the dining table. The answer is no, I said, my voice dead calm. If a delivery truck shows up at my warehouse, I am turning it away. If anyone tries to force their way in, I'm calling the police. I don't care about your deposit, Chloe. She burst into theatrical tears and my parents erupted into shouting, but I didn't stay to listen. I walked out the front door and drove home. I expected a barrage of angry calls the next day. Instead, I got a quiet text from Marcus. Can we meet? Alone. We met at a dim coffee shop a few blocks from my shop. Marcus looked physically sick. His face was pale and his hands were shaking around his paper cup. He didn't look like a man planning a wedding. He looked like a man staring down the barrel of a gun. She lied to me, Liam, he said quietly. About what part? All of it. Marcus rubbed his face, exhausted. Chloe told me you agreed to the bakery a month ago. She showed me text messages. She actually typed out fake conversations on her old phone to make it look like you were excited about the partnership. I sat back, disgusted but not surprised. And the equipment deposit? Marcus swallowed hard. His eyes dropped to the table. That's why I'm here, Liam. It wasn't our savings. Chloe took advance payments from 8 different brides for custom wedding cakes. She took thousands of dollars meant for ingredients and delivery fees, and she spent it all on 3 commercial deck ovens. The reality hit me like a physical blow. She embezzled her client's money. She calls it reallocating startup capital, Marcus whispered, looking absolutely terrified. She convinced herself that once the ovens were installed in your shop, she'd bake the cakes, make the money back, and no one would ever know. But without your building, she has nowhere to put the equipment. The supplier won't refund a commercial order. She has 8 weddings next month with no kitchen, no ingredients, and no cash. I stared at the mild-mannered accountant sitting across from me. He was finally waking up to the nightmare I had known my whole life. Chloe wasn't just spoiled anymore. Her delusions had crossed the line into actual financial fraud. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know, Marcus said, his voice cracking. But I can't marry someone who thinks stealing is just a business strategy. He stood up, leaving his coffee untouched. He looked at me one last time before leaving. Keep your doors locked, Liam. She is desperate. I already had, but as I watched Marcus walk out to his car, a cold realization settled over me. Chloe was backed into a corner, facing ruined brides and massive debt. She wasn't just going to give up and walk away. The real fight hadn't even started yet.
The Chicago Furniture Expo was booked months in advance. It was a 5-day trip I couldn't cancel, even with Marcus's warning ringing in my ears. Before leaving for the airport, I checked the biometric locks twice and armed the hidden motion sensor cameras inside the workshop. I thought I had covered every angle. On my 3rd night in Chicago, my phone buzzed violently on the hotel nightstand at 2 a.m. It was a security alert, motion detected inside the warehouse. I sat up in the dark and opened the live video feed. My blood ran cold. The overhead industrial lights were fully illuminated. Standing by the heavy side door was my mother. In her hand was an old brass key, the emergency spare I gave her 3 years ago in case of a fire or a burst pipe. She hadn't bypassed my new smart locks. She had simply bypassed my trust. Behind her, Chloe marched in holding a clipboard, followed by 3 hired movers. Outside, a box truck idled in the alleyway. I watched the small screen in silent horror as the crew got to work. They grabbed my premium walnut slabs, wood I had spent months drying and prepping, and dragged them carelessly across the room, dumping them in a corner. Then they moved to the heavy machinery. They unbolted my $15,000 CNC router and shoved it roughly toward the basement stairs. I could physically see the metal tearing deep gouges into my finished floor. Once my work area was cleared, the men started wheeling in massive stainless steel commercial deck ovens. Chloe was directing them, pointing to the exact spots by the north windows she had demanded weeks ago. She was actually doing it. She was forcing her bakery into my building in the middle of the night. My thumb hovered over my mother's contact name. I could call her, scream at her to stop, and demand they get out. But looking at the destroyed floor and the absolute entitlement on my sister's face, I realized talking was pointless. They didn't respect my boundaries because they didn't respect me. I closed my contacts app and dialed the police precinct in my district instead. "I am currently out of town," I told the dispatcher, keeping my voice dead steady. "I have a live video feed of multiple people breaking into my commercial property and destroying industrial equipment. Yes, they gained entry with a spare key without my consent. Send officers immediately. I want to press charges." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, taking screenshots of the footage, waiting for the flashing blue and red lights to illuminate the alleyway.
20 minutes later, the live feed flared with flashing red and blue lights. 2 police cruisers blocked the alleyway, casting long shadows across my workshop walls. I watched through the camera as 3 officers walked through the door. The movers froze. My mother rushed forward, waving her hands, trying to play it off as a family misunderstanding. Chloe immediately pulled out her clipboard, pointing at her printed PowerPoint slides and lease mock-ups, as if a piece of paper she made at home made breaking and entering legal. The officers didn't care about her presentation. They saw the damaged machinery and the unauthorized entry. One officer pointed at the door. The movers were ordered to haul the massive deck ovens right back out to the curb. Chloe dropped her clipboard and started crying hysterically, but the cops didn't budge. I flew back the next morning. By the time I arrived, the warehouse was dead quiet. The commercial ovens were sitting outside under a tarp, abandoned by the delivery crew. Inside, my floor was deeply gouged and my lumber was scattered, but the space was still mine. I went straight to the precinct and signed the formal complaint. The consequences were immediate. My mother received a criminal trespass citation. My father left a voicemail calling me a monster, so I blacked his number along with the rest of the family. Chloe was charged with property damage, but the police were the least of her problems. When she couldn't pay the remaining balance on the ovens, the supplier repossessed them. Word spread fast. Within a week, the 8 brides realized their deposits were gone and there was no bakery. They banded together and threatened to sue her for civil fraud. Marcus didn't wait around for the lawsuits. He broke off the engagement, packed his bags, and moved into a small apartment across town. He refused to take on a single dollar of her debt. It took me 2 weeks to recalibrate my CNC router and sand the gouges out of my concrete floor. I installed heavy iron security gates over the windows and a commercial keypad on the main door. No physical keys exist anymore. I lost my family, but I kept my sanity, my autonomy, and my business. Last night, Marcus stopped by the shop. We didn't talk about Chloe, the lawsuits, or the canceled wedding. We just sat on the loading dock, drinking cold beer and watching the city traffic pass by. We were 2 guys who had barely escaped the same trap. He raised his bottle to me. I tapped mine against his. My phone doesn't ring with family guilt trips anymore. The only sound in the warehouse now is the steady hum of my machinery. And that's exactly how I like it.